keys, my keys, my keys, my keys. Where you been? Where you been? That's probably what you're thinking. Well, that's what I like to think you're thinking. Where have I been? Usually, I'm more of an active guy. Not this type of active running. I actually haven't been running, but long story short, we got quite a few people now in the hostel. And that means I'm doing a lot more yapping. Not to the camera, not for the YouTube, but to real life people. And it's kind of interesting because I would be having conversations with people that just seem, or would seem normal back in like the 90s or the 80s, probably more. And I feel people are missing out. There's no more of just authentic, just talking. There's no more moments of, like just yesterday I was walking the beach and I made eye contact with a girl and I just said hi and she said hi. And I was like, where are you from? And then she immediately just turned around and we started talking, and ended up she was being a volunteer somewhere else around here. And I was like, man, not a lot of people have cool moments like that. But in particular, not a lot of people have cool stories anymore. Well, for me, cool. I wouldn't say cool. Let's say interesting and exciting, because that's a very neutrally charged word. For example, I went to dinner with an Irish guy the other night, and we're trading stories, and he went first, and he said, well, probably the most interesting story I have was when I was in Africa and I had an AK-47 pointed at my head. I said, there's a story there. And he was telling me he went to watch a soccer game. I forget the country in Africa. And he was coming home after the game and it was dark and there's no lights and they're staying in like a hut, which is like, he was trying to describe it to me. He said, think of like a bunch of like branches, obviously thicker, but that was like the wall, so you can kind of see through it. And the only, I guess these branches, they're a little more thicker. Okay, the size of my arm branches. And he said the only thing that protected you at night was really the mosquito net that was over the bed. And he said as he was walking back, he hears his girlfriend yell his name and said, hey, there's a guy sitting on our porch with a gun drinking wine. And it turned out it was the, I guess like police chief, and he just wanted to go on his break, sit down, enjoy a glass of wine while he held his favorite gun. I mean, can't blame the guy. But basically he diffused the situation because the Irish guy was more concerned that he was gonna have his life ended at that moment, and the police chief guy was more concerned that he was gonna lose his job, that he was drinking wine and holding his favorite gun. And so I told him my story, which I'll have to repost it, but I went to, they call it immigration detention jail or detention center. I call it jail because on Google Maps it says immigration detention jail. So I went to jail in Thailand. So I was telling my story. But it gets a little more interesting because that night I get back to the hostel and I met this other girl. She was from Mexico. And she was telling me how she's kind of upset right now. And I said, why? She goes, I met this girl and she's in jail and I don't know what to do. And I was like, all right, this is right up my alley. I've read this book before. And she said what the girl told her was how am I gonna cross this thing? That is some Yorkshire tea is what I like to call it after meeting a group of guys from England. And I make a joke that all the puddles are Yorkshire tea because they miss their tea so much. Anyways, I digress. And this is probably the most just some chickens and their chicks. Thought after scam, because somehow she made a phone call from the jail and she must have used you know, the country's, I don't know if she has another SIM. I don't know. It was crazy, but basically, she told the girl I met that she went to jail. Uh-oh. Someone's not supposed to be here. Not me, bro. Alright. We're a little dramatic here. I've heard people got... Okay. They know they're on camera. That's why they're behaving that way. I've heard people get chased by dogs, so I'm trying to be tough and brave right now. But this girl makes up this story that she was on the beach, met 3 guys, local guys, and... Well, I need to backtrack a little bit. She met this girl back in her home country, and they bonded over the fact that they both didn't smoke the devil's lettuce, aka, you know. And so they had their moment, and then they went off, and I guess they kept in touch, and they're keeping each other updated because they were both going to do a trip to the same country. So anyways, fast forward. Oh, I left out one detail. They also exchanged phone numbers. And when they exchanged phone numbers, the girl was like, oh, our number is so similar. I'm going to be able to remember this number. Because it was like the first, like, same, I don't know, like 5 digits or something. And so it's kind of interesting when, like, weird similarities or coincidences like that happen. So you would think. So fast forward to 2 days ago, and the girl's like, she told me a story. She said she only had 1 minute to talk. She said she's in jail, she needs to get out. Then she met 3 local guys on the beach. They were smoking weed. You know me, I don't do that. And they went swimming and their pockets were wet, and they don't want to put the devil's lettuce in their pocket, so they said, hey, you have a bag, can we just put it in your bag until we get back to the hotel? She said sure. She puts the stuff in her bag. She starts walking back. Right when they get to the city, 4 police officers come. The guys run off and they take her to jail after searching her bag and finding that she had drugs in her bag. And I was like, damn, she got set up. And even the girl was like, yeah, I think she got set up. I even asked one of my local friends here, and she was, ugh, she got set up. And so they needed the friend to fly from where she was to this island and help her out. And she was telling her in that 1 minute conversation, don't worry, just pay for your flight, and once you pay the bail money or whatever that needs to be done, she goes, I don't even know how this works. Once you figure it all out, I'll pay you back, I promise. And in my head, I'm like, man, I was in a group. I can't imagine being alone. So I was trying to figure out which jail in particular she was from. So I go, why don't you reverse look up the number that you called from, because she called from the jail, and it should come up which particular jail it was, because we looked up the jail on where she said she was, and there was like 6 police stations and detention centers, so it would be, you know, a little difficult. And so she looks it up, and it comes into a completely different jail on a completely different area within the same country, but just like on a different like island. But it was similarly worded. And I was like, you said it was this country, which let's just say has like 6 letters, and it's this country, which is like, or this area, which is like 7 letters, and just different letters, slightly different, like maybe 2 different letters. And the girl was like, I don't know. She goes, I'm just going to figure this out tomorrow. She goes, I'm so sorry. She goes, I'm drunk. I just need to sleep for like 4 hours and figure out what I'm going to do, because, you know, this is someone from my country and I want to help them out. And I just stepped in mud. Look at that. It's like, I should propose this to Kanye. New style, dipped in paint. So she goes to bed, and I was thinking about ways that she needs to go out doing this, and I was thinking, you know, screw telling her family, she needs to notify her embassy first. And as I sat with it, I remember that there was two options, and I opted for the contacting the embassy option. There's the, how can I say, not bribing. Okay, bribing. So you bribe them just to get out of jail. And to let the whole thing, not just bail, just to like clear the whole thing, clean your hands, boom, you're done, and just pay it. And I go, and I was telling her before she was about to go to bed, I go, it's probably not a good idea to do the embassy. But she was drunk, and she was like, we need to call the embassy. I go, no, that was the first proposal. I go, my second proposal was just pay them. And my other friend was like, yeah, just pay them. So I wake up the next morning thinking that she needs to catch the 6 a.m. van to the airport, take a flight, go to the island, and try to figure it out. Most likely at least bail her out. And she's sitting there at 8 in the morning, because I slept in, having her cigarette and coffee, and I walk over, and she goes, you're never gonna believe this. I go, what? She goes, the girl, I found her on Facebook, and I was trying to notify her family, and I came across her ex-husband that's raising their only daughter, and she is just known for doing this to kind foreigners and somehow scams them out of money. And I go, scam them out? I'm like, how? If she's in jail, you're gonna know if she's in jail or not. Like, you go there and you can physically see her. She goes, look, I don't know what the next steps are. I don't know if she has like working with people within the jail, or she has a guy dressed up as a jail man, or whatever the case is. She goes, but I feel so stupid. Here I was trying to do everything. And I was like, well, at least you found out. But it kind of blew my mind that it was like, you hear the typical story of like, don't let anyone put anything in your bag. But she just took it to like a whole new level of scamming, because it was like just preying on like the good hearts of people. And for me, I was even kind of feeling for her, because even though Mexico isn't in America, I mean, we took California from them, but I still feel Mexico is like our little brother or our little sister, and we need to take care of each other. You know, we're attached to each other. So for me, it was like really mind-blowing, because I'm like, what an extravagant plan. And the friend was telling me, she was like, and I think she was working me from the day I met. She goes, building my trust, saying we have this in common, saying we don't smoke. Like, everything was just, if you're able to sit and think as like a calculated person, like everything makes sense, and there's 0% reason to not believe this person, because you already had these conversations that built her case up to this point. So it's just really, really mind-blowing. So being at the hostel, you hear and experience super interesting stories like that, because even I would have gotten fooled. And so it's just scary how, you know, there's some really dark people out there, you know. It's like I was talking to this other guy, he was from England, and we're just exchanging travel stories. And I was like, have you ever been to South America? And he goes, yeah, I've been. I go, where? He goes, Colombia. I'm like, I wanted to go to Colombia. There's a few reasons why. Even the ugly women are not ugly, at least to me. It's kind of like licking rocks all your life, and then you bite into like a bitter strawberry. It still tastes better than licking a rock. That's how I feel. So everyone in Colombia is a nice strawberry. Sometimes bitter, but it tastes sweet to me. And so he goes, I asked him how his trip went in Colombia. He goes, oh, I got kidnapped. And I said, what? And he goes, yeah, kidnapped and robbed. And I said, what? And every time I tried to, get the details out of him, obviously this isn't a story that, you tell everyone in the room. You just tell everyone on the internet. It was kind of hard to get like a one-on-one sort of situation with him to get the details out of it. So before he was leaving, I was like, bro, please, before you leave, I go, I need to know how this happened. How did you get kidnapped in Colombia? And he goes, I'm going to send you something. And he sends me a video. He goes, watch that. And I look at it, and it's like 32 minutes and like 51 seconds. He goes, watch that, then we'll have a conversation. And I watched it, and it's like, they call it the devil's breath, or the world's most dangerous drug, because it's not like a roofie or some sort of drug where you pass out and then they can go through your pockets or whatever. From when I watched the video, you're still conscious, but you do everybody's suggestion. Example would be, once it's in your body, either through inhaling it or drinking it in your drink, someone might say, hey, let's go to this bar down the street. And you'll say, yeah, let's go. But then they gradually evolve that into, hey, let's go to the ATM and pull out all your money. And you say, okay. And they'll say, hey, what's your PIN? And then you tell them your PIN. And you have any other cards? Yeah. And so it's like all the truth is like coming out of you. And I mean, you can look it up, and there's stories of like people getting their apartment cleaned out, their cameras, their TVs, and you're helping them move the stuff out into this van. And the next morning you just wake up in an empty apartment, you go downstairs and you try to talk to the doorman, and the doorman says, dude, you told me they were your friends and you seemed like happy to do it. And like, you were normal, you were talking, you weren't like walking weird or anything. So you completely black out and you just do anything and everything someone tells you to do. It's literally insane. I don't know why more people don't know about it, but it's called scopolamine. There's a scopolamine, I don't know. It's that one. And then there's another slang word. It's like bone, I forget. It starts with a B. But, like, you don't get these stories just sitting in your corporate job, But then there's good ones. Let me get to the good ones. There was one yesterday. She was from England as well. Super clever girl. And she is using ChatGPT AI to plan her trip. So she goes, I'm leaving from Heathrow Airport on this date. I want to visit this place, this place, this place, maybe this place, maybe this place. I want to try this food, but I need to end up here, and I want to take a flight before this date to return to England at this time. And she sends it to ChatGPT, and it spits out like different itineraries that she could use to make her trip like just easily traveled. It's no more stressing about, is this plane gonna align with this plane, and can I take the ferry at this time? And she was asking it questions like, are there, the equivalent of Uber in Asia is called Grab. Is there a Grab on this particular island? And she got her answer. And it's like, damn, you just get exposed to so many minds and so many personalities and so many, I guess, like risk tolerances that it's a pretty amazing experience, because my risk tolerance now might be like 37%, where I don't really do too much of crazy things anymore if the reward isn't there. And if the reward, for example, back in Thailand, there was a big rock and I climbed it, but it was like 3 stories high, and there was a huge risk of falling because all that you used to climb up it was like a rusty chain. So now, being at my age, would I climb up a rock with a rusty chain attached to it as the only means to get to the top? Probably not. Was it cool at the time? Yes. Did I almost fall? Yes. But it's cool to meet people who have, you know, 100% risk tolerance or 99% risk tolerance, and you hear these crazy stories. There's another guy, he said he was on the Ivory Coast. No, I forget which country. I don't want to pinpoint the wrong country. Scratch that. He was somewhere in the world watching a soccer match. And he said they had just arrived and they had 30 minutes to get to a bar with a TV that had the soccer match. They go to the bar, they take the taxi. Right when they arrive, they saw that they're from Spain and Spain was playing some country. And they're like, Spain! And there's 40 guys, shaved heads, without their t-shirts, trying to like mob these like 7 Spanish dudes that just wanted to drink beer and watch a soccer game. And luckily the police was out there, so they let them in the bar, and they're banging on the door, and the police are from the inside, like blocking like the door. He's just like, that's like my interesting story. He was, it's got nothing on you in your Thailand one. Well, fair enough. But it's been a little busy at the hostel, and it's nice because you get to talk to different people and meet different people. And that's what I've been doing. Don't get me wrong, I did enjoy, you know, my alone time and basically just existing, because since there was no one, I just had free accommodation and I had freedom to do whatever I wanted. But there's also like 3 other things I wanted to talk about, but I don't have my phone with me, which is kind of nice. I always leave my phone behind most of the time if I don't need it. But the good news is, there'll be another video.